here we are, Talbot Street.
Everybody's come through the doors of this building, haven't they? And all sorts of things.
Yeah, they've come through for complaints, confessions to murder, and of course Jerry Hutch snuck in this building as well late at night one night and did an interview.
And flowers.
And flowers.
Don't forget the flowers, because we're going to tell all these stories at the Cork Podcast Festival, which is our show's actually on the 30th of March in the Opera House. Tickets are on sale from the corkpodcastfestival.ie, and they're selling fast. We've only got, 2 weeks left?
2 weeks left, yeah.
We broke this story on Monday about the arrests around the takedown of the Ghost communication platform, at which point there were 3 top-tier members of the Family Organised Crime Group in custody. They still are in custody, but Europol have now released their own information around this, and they're talking about 12 members in total of this gang, this network have been arrested, 6 of them in Spain. And they go into a little bit more detail about what they have netted over there.
Yeah, I mean, they go into the seizures and they also describe the modus operandi, as they describe it, of how the gang were operating. Obviously, they were using this encrypted network Ghost for their communications. But what they're basically saying is that much of the family's drug dealing operation was brought to Ireland in hidden compartments in cars or trucks. So what they do is they build in these I suppose, X-ray proof anyway, to some extent. And the cocaine would literally be driven. They seem to have had a warehouse in an industrial estate in Castellon where the drugs were sent. They'd be then vacuum packed. Then they'd be placed in cars and driven to Ireland, often through France. There's been a number of arrests of Irish people over in Spain, but also Colombians, from somebody from the UK, and a couple of Spanish. So it's a major operation. That they were saying, for example, the lorries tended to leave with a half load of drugs before legal merchandise was also placed on top of them, so they would have a legitimate reason to be transporting. And overall, the seizures they're speaking about were cocaine was seized of 314 kilos and marijuana of 220 kilos in that particular shipment.
So, and are these vans or trucks, do we know yet, travelling back fitted or filled with money? Because that's the suggestion, that the family organisation are shipping, like they're moving their money out in their same logistics network back out of the country into Europe.
Well, they don't actually seem to, certainly these recent arrests don't seem to have been to do with that. But there does seem to be this core base, which is in Castellon, which is somewhere between Barcelona and Valencia, and that this is obviously a totally distinct network that they have. And yeah, the Ghost hack has exposed all of this. We haven't heard obviously details of the messages in particular, but it's been described as being very sophisticated, and that they would switch phones all the time.
Europol are actually headlining it, "The Criminals Haunted by Their Chats," which is exactly what it is, really,
yeah,
isn't it?
It is.
They're kind of tripping themselves up all the time these days on the phones and in the messages.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And there was a further arrest in Ireland, so of a guy in his 50s. So we've seen obviously the three main leaders of the family network, and this specific guy who's described as being the boss, and probably his 2 closest associates. This very, very tight network of people with this big degree of trust amongst each other. They've been arrested.
One of those people that's arrested here in Ireland has been questioned in relation to the supply of those handsets.
Yeah, so
the grouping, it was the facilitator. We spoke about that the other day, that this was different slightly to Encro, because Encro was an app. You put in your normal phone, yeah?
Yeah.
And then you could dump your phone and install the app, whereas this came complete with handsets and 3 layers of encryption.
Yeah, so there seems to have been a technical support guy, or a guy suspected of being a technical support guy, has also been picked up, because handsets were being delivered personally, and it required obviously somebody to do that. The the guy described as the boss of the family would be well known to Gardaí for over 2 decades for his involvement in drug trafficking offences. He's currently before the courts on a serious criminal charge. However, he's previously been convicted of serious drug offences, including a case involving heroin, not to get into the specifics of it. So he would be regarded as being the head of this gang. The gang have been based in West Dublin originally. They were originally a gang, I suppose, that was focused on the supply of heroin. But in recent years, certainly even before probably the demise of the Kinnan cartel, they were involved in cocaine, but certainly their operation seems to have escalated as probably the Irish network of the Kinnan cartel was dismantled following the feud. The dismantling of that network allowed them to become really a massive national gang, while they always were involved with people down in various parts of the country. They've expanded their operations. They've become probably, along with maybe the Mr. Big network, they've become the main suppliers of cocaine throughout the country. Rural Ireland has never had a greater hunger for cocaine, and these guys have stepped into the void. It's interesting as well to hear them spoken about today in the Europol operation about their cannabis stealing, which we kind of tend to forget about, don't we?
Yeah.
We tend not to focus on it. But even in the most recent Europol report, they described the absolute huge amounts of money to be made selling cannabis. Obviously, there's some countries in Europe where the legal situation has changed, but
it's about 25% of the illegal drug market, as far as I can remember. Certainly, the last figures looked about in around that. You'd often wonder, while there's obviously debate and controversy around legalising it, would you not, from a financial point of view, be clawing back that amount of the black economy into the legitimate economy and using it then in a perfect world to fight other crime?
Yeah, I mean, look, that is the argument that's made. I mean, we know what can happen with legalisation. I mean, it's to be studied in other countries and see how people feel about it, I suppose, ultimately.
Yeah, I think we're a long way from it anyway. We don't seem to be at the table with it. Do you see the pictures they've released from Europol?
Yeah.
This is now becoming a classic kind of when everybody gets together. It's the picture of the backs of the Garda uniform, the Europol uniform, the Guardia Civil. And I think that last one is the Italians, is it?
Yes, there seems to have been an Italian involvement. Certainly, we do know that one person was arrested, part of the Sacre Corps mafia, as it's described in Italy, in the initial phase of this investigation. So that network is obviously still there. And
some good pictures of the arrests and of that warehouse facility in Spain, which we're going to imagine is under the ownership or certainly the control of the family grouping, that they actually have their own warehousing there. The Irish Gardaí are pretty quiet about this, aren't they?
They've put out another statement again today, but a very brief one, saying a 6th man has been arrested. The Europol have put out a lot more release about the specifics of it.
And the Guardia Civil, are we getting anything in from Spain?
Well, we're getting bits in from Spain. It's just kind of further details. I suppose they have while there's 12 people arrested, Europol are describing there seems to have been other arrests kind of surrounding it. It affects other parts of the country is actually how it's described. So look, it's a major blow. To this
no press
network.
Conference.
No press conference as of yet.
Yeah, well, we'll see if that happens later in the week, I suppose. But we have a podcast we did there on Monday, if anybody wants to listen to, which goes through really the details of that original ghost bust when they had the day of action initially in September of last year between various police forces and various European police forces and the Australians, and what they seized and what they got during that.
Yeah.
The belief is that there's a huge amount of really good evidence against many of those people that are in custody, including the top tier members of the family grouping. And it remains to be seen if there are charges proffered by the Director of Public Prosecutions in these cases, which will be indeed if it goes to court, the first time we have seen a case using this encrypted communication.
Yeah, because we're going to see that there have been seizures linked to this ghost network by the guards and by Europol. They've specifically referenced some of them. And we will see then this will all go to the DPP, and they will be, obviously they can be held for 7 days, the suspects, as under the legislation that exists. But at that point, they'll have to make a decision whether to release them without charge or bring charges. 7 days is a relatively long period of time. But it seems that the evidence is there, and somebody in the DPP's office is going to have to make a decision about sort of a big decision about whether to decide to bring charges on the basis of encrypted, hacked information from an encrypted network, which will be a first, I suppose, in Irish legal history.
Okay, Niall, we'll come back to this later in the week.
Thanks, Nicola. Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.